Hello, I'm Eric Kane, the Director of ESG Research for Bloomberg Intelligence, and for this month's ESG News Bulletin, we'll highlight three key items. First, we'll discuss Air New Zealand's recent decision to abandon its 2030 carbon target and what that means for the airlines industry. Second, we'll discuss the announcement of the first ever reforestation bond. And third, we'll discuss a U.S. federal court's decision to overturn a Missouri law that required investment professionals to get written consent from clients before considering ESG factors. I'll then be joined by Nicole Jagernauth, an ESG advocate within Bloomberg Sales, who will walk through some of the tools we have on Terminal that can help clients understand which ESG issues are financially material for which industries. So earlier this month, Air New Zealand announced that it would abandon its 2030 target to reduce its carbon intensity by nearly 29% compared to 2019. The company cited delivery delays of fuel-efficient aircraft and the affordability of sustainable aviation fuel in its decision. Air New Zealand announced it would withdraw its target from the Science Based Targets Initiative, or SBTI as it's known, but also said it was committed to reaching net zero by 2050. This was followed by an announcement from the International Air Transport Association that its carbon offsetting and reduction scheme for international aviation, or CORSIA, was at risk due to the low supply of eligible credits. This further calls into question the decarbonization plans of an industry that accounts for about 2% of global emissions. At BI, we released research on the carbon credibility of the airlines industry's decarbonization plans in March and found that these targets overwhelmingly lacked credibility because most companies were overstating the emissions reductions they'd achieved through sustainable aviation fuel. And further, the fuel was not likely to be available at the scale necessary by 2030. Subsequently, it's our view that the Air New Zealand announcement will be the first of many within the airlines industry. This analysis is of course available on BI ESG under the Environmental tab. Earlier in August, the World Bank sold the first ever carbon removal bond to fund Amazon reforestation. The 9-year, $225 million note is intended to help raise funds for the reforestation of the Amazon, and returns will be linked to the climate impact of the new trees. The bond will fund a Brazilian startup that will acquire land or enter partnerships with landowners in the Amazon with the aim of reforesting the land. The resulting carbon credits will be based on the amount of carbon removed by the planted trees and will be sold to Microsoft. Bondholders will receive a fixed guaranteed coupon of 1.745%, but the annualized yield could go up to 4.362% through an additional variable coupon that is linked to the number of credits sold. You can of course track sustainable debt issuance by going to the ESG debt section of the BI ESG dashboard. You can also use a new terminal function, NIA at Greenium Go, to quantify the premium for sustainable fixed income instruments versus non-sustainable, known as the Greenium. And finally, a federal judge in Missouri struck down a state rule that had limited the ability of financial professionals to consider ESG factors in their investment advice. Specifically, the rule would have required advisors to obtain consent from their clients before considering ESG. The judge said the rule was invalid because it imposed requirements that don't exist in federal law, violated free speech of investment advisors, and was so vague that it couldn't be enforced. The Securities Industry and Financial Markets Association, which brought the lawsuit against the rule, had also argued that federal securities laws already require financial professionals to provide advice that is in the best interests of their customers. This law was, of course, one of several Republican-led initiatives against ESG. This pushback is something we've covered extensively at BI, including its impact on this year's proxy season. And now I'll turn over to Nicole Jagernauth to walk through some of the tools we have on Terminal to help investors understand which ESG issues they consider for which industries and how to assess performance.
Thank you, Eric. My name is Nicole Jagernauth, and I'm an ESG advocate within Bloomberg Sales. Bloomberg provides a variety of ways to understand which ESG issues are likely to be financially material to which industries. You can also see how companies are performing on these issues and associated metrics. For example, the new ESG materiality grid on the BI ESG dashboard allows clients to select an industry and view which issues are material to that industry. Then, the relative importance of each issue within its larger ESG pillar. Here we see the materiality analysis for the home products and personal care products industry. We can see that the three pillars are equally weighted across E, S, and G. And within the environmental pillar, sustainable product and environmental supply chain management are the most material issues. You could also use this tool and start with an issue like environmental supply chain and see all of the industries for which we determine this issue to be material. We can then go to the ESG score function for a particular company and evaluate how it's performing on each issue, including things like palm oil sourcing. This falls under environmental supply chain and of course has links to the issue of deforestation, which Eric alluded to earlier. Thank you, and back to you, Eric.
Thanks, Nicole. And as a reminder to our viewers, more data and research related to these topics and much more can of course be found on Terminal by going to BI/ESG Go. Thanks for joining us, and please stay tuned for next month's bulletin, and we'll see you then.